Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast, co-starring 10-year NFL veteran and Super Bowl champion, Will Blackmon.
Manning from the end zone. He throws, and a deflect away, and it is picked off by Will Blackmon, the former Giant.
Tim Dwight watches it hit, bounces, picks it up at the 10, slips a defender, fumbles the football, it's up for grabs, it's covered in the end zone by Will Blackmon for a Green Bay touchdown!
And now, here is your host,
Let's send it over to Rick Bucher.
Rick Bucher.
Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Blackmon, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends on the United WeCast Network. I'm Rick Bucher. He is 12-year NFL vet and Super Bowl champ Will Blackmon. You can find him on NFL Game Day Live Sundays on the NFL Network and on Twitter at Will Blackmon. You can find me on Bleacher Report and at Rick Bucher on Twitter, among other places. And you probably heard in the intro of this podcast that it says he's a 10-year vet, but we've expanded it to 12 years because we're trying to get him more compensation from the retirement fund. So we've bumped it to 12 from 10. 2 years in there, and we actually started to record this. We had some issues. We're not going to go through the whole thing about how it's kind of a canard that we would add 2 years when he didn't play. And we got into guys who go to training camp, which is what happened with Will for 2 years, got injured and then didn't play those years. And any guy who would say that he actually played in the NFL if he went to training camp but didn't make the team, we'd never stand for that. Right?
Like I said, it depends on the conversation. If they were like, hey, I went to training camp, then I'd be like, okay. But if he was like truly trying to show off, like he was one of the boys, like he went to war, you know, right. and it's like, no. But if he was like, hey, you know, I played some ball, I respect anybody who has been brought into a training camp. If someone's like, I played ball, yeah, I went to training camp with so-and-so, it was like, oh, okay, he actually had like a Costco sample size of the NFL.
Right. Costco.
I respect that.
Yeah, there's a certain level of respect that you get when you are invited to training camp and you go through a training camp.
Yeah.
Because it takes something to get through that. But then it's a whole other level
to play 12 years like me, baby. Yes.
or 10 plus 2. No, but it is a whole other thing when you actually play in an NFL game, correct?
Yeah, because it counts. And this is like regular season games we're talking, not preseason games. Even preseason games, I get that part, but like when it for real counts in the books, yeah, that's when it's for real.
Is there a way for you, and the only thing I can relate to from my athletic career was going from high school, going to college, the change there, and then played the defending state champions. And we played there at the University of Connecticut. That was a whole different level. Is there a way to equate or to quantify the difference between a preseason game and a regular season game in the NFL? Like, what is I've been on the sideline for a regular season NFL game, and the sheer sound and the speed of the game is breathtaking. But I wonder, as a player, as someone who's experienced it from on the field, I assume that everything gets ratcheted up yet another level from preseason to regular season, whether it's speed, contact, whatever it might be. But I'm wondering if there's a way to quantify that.
Well, in a sense, it's funny. I think the regular season is actually much easier than the preseason because you're playing with other guys who know what they're doing.
Right. Yeah,
that's the biggest thing. Preseason is pretty tough just because I may know what I'm doing, but there's probably 6-7 other guys. Like, I've been in the game third quarter. You know, I've already played 8+ years, and I'm in there with a bunch of young guys, and I'm over here like Mozart. You know, I'm over here composing and trying to, you know, orchestrate this whole thing. But that's all it is. That's the biggest difference. Because you're out there too. You're out there with a lot of guys. It's their first time playing. A lot of guys are scared. A lot of guys don't know what to do. A lot of guys aren't in shape. You know,
really?
So yeah, there's a huge difference.
And I would think that it makes it infinitely harder on you to be able to do anything. Because to me, the great teams, and this goes for any sport, the great teams is I don't have to look to know that you're going to be where you're supposed to be. I am confident that when we run something, there's certain things I can trust are going to happen. And when I can't, and I have to double check to make sure things are in place, that puts my whole team at a disadvantage.
Right, and those are the most difficult teams to beat, are the teams that they know what they're doing across the board. Now, there are some teams that have, they might have a really good quarterback. They might have Pro Bowl players all around. Yeah, they look great on paper. They're great in Madden, But there are those teams that just everyone just know. For example, obviously that's why the Patriots are so good every year, because they harp on the details. They harp on doing your job. That was their motto when they wanted it. It was do your job. I remember in college, the toughest teams to play against were the Boise States. When Dan Hawkins was the coach and even Chris Peterson took over. It was teams like that because they were disciplined. They knew exactly what to do. They knew where to be. And that's what made them very successful. And so then when you have a team that is super talented and they know what to do, they know where to be, and they know how to handle adversity, then they're going to win.
So most people are wondering, where the hell did these guys go on this tangent? But it actually plays into the game. We're recording this after the Monday night game where the Philadelphia Eagles beat the Washington Redskins 28-13. And lo and behold, when you have the fourth string offensive guards in the game and you have the third string quarterback, you're suddenly operating with guys out there that you haven't played with on a regular basis. It compromises everything that you do, no?
Well, yeah. Well, that's where I was going to with my next point. And not only do the best teams have really good players that know what they're doing, what I learned is the best teams have unbelievable depth. It's the second string player, the third string player, the special team guys. Like some of the good teams, they have starters that are on special teams. That's the important thing. I remember being in Seattle. Seattle, what Pete and John do very, very well, they train the bottom of their roster. They spend a lot of time focusing on the bottom of their roster because they trust the fact that, Russell Wilson and Bobby Wagner, at the time, it was, Richard Sherman. Like, the starters were going to do their thing. They're going to train them. But the assistant coaches, they had high-energy coaches, young coaches, and they all spent a ton of time training the bottom of the roster and bringing guys in like that. And so you see with the Redskins, it's tough because once the starters go down, it's like, man, who's next?
Even the starters, and I was just looking at the skill positions, and obviously from the beginning of the year, the offensive line has just been turned into mush by injury. But even when I look at the skill positions that they have, it doesn't blow you away. I mean, they're good. It's actually impressive that they were as competitive as they have been this year. And maybe from your perspective, there's more talent there than the names necessarily suggest.
Well, they're competitive because they do have talented people. They have not only talented guys, but they have the veterans that they need to make themselves competitive. Because there are some guys in there they're self-motivated, like a Trent Williams, like a DJ Swearinger or Vernon Davis. Like, those guys are self-motivating. And sometimes when you have guys who maybe look for more motivation, they look to them to try to pick up their level of play too.
Right.
Especially, I know the defensive side, Coach Greg Minuski is just one of the best motivators. He's a really good coach, and I know he does everything in his power to get them right. And I think the biggest thing with them that I see why their defense is not doing as well is I just don't see any true chemistry. I think on paper they have an extremely talented roster, but they just don't have the chemistry that they should have. Like I said, I'm not there right now, so I don't know how they're preparing. They could be preparing, they could be doing the things off the field, but they just don't have that chemistry that you need to play well. In 2015, we had a roster that was not as appealing as this one right here. However, guys came back, they stayed after to watch film, to watch extra stuff, even though it was annoying, it was a pain in the ass. Guys still came back to watch. And that was the year that no one thought we were going to win a division. Somehow we did.
What's the key to developing that chemistry?
You have to find just players who know how to be a professional, and that is pretty much doing all the things that you need to do off the field. And that's not only just training and taking care of your body, but it's learning how to prepare, learning how to be a professional, knowing that, okay, yes, we're going to go into meetings with our position coach. He's going to go over the game plan and the playbook. And then once those meetings are over, then it's your turn to do your part and to enhance whatever you learned and to share it amongst one another. There's no egos. There's none of that. It's truly, so when I prepared, I knew when I played with Josh Norman, I was like, the less the less information we give him, the better he will play. Like, you don't want to cloud his mind because he's already in aggressive attack mode. Like, I'm going to cause turnovers. So you don't want to put Josh in a position where he's going to have to, I got to worry about this, worry about that.
You don't want him to think.
You don't want him to think, especially at corner. Like, let Josh do his thing. So I took it upon myself not only to study like my position for safety, but let me also study extra hard. So in case like if there's a check that he maybe forgot or didn't know, like I knew it.
And I would also think that you'd have to study him. You'd have to know this is the way Josh plays, and now I'm going to play off of him. Yeah,
I know how.
This is how
exactly
he's going to react on this certain play.
Right, because I remember we played the Bengals, and there was one time where the formation told me, okay, we're probably going to get one route over here. We're not going to get multiple receivers. We're probably going to get one route. And Josh looked at me, and I told him, go jump the route. Like, go ahead. Don't worry about getting beat deep or them running double moves. I got you. I said, go jump the route. And in that defense, he's supposed to have like a deep third, I believe. And I'm like, just go ahead because I understand what's going on. I'm going to help you out. Like, I did my part to help everybody out. And that's how I play the game. And when you have a lot of guys on the team who think like that because they truly want to be support and take care of one another, then things tend to go well.
It's fascinating that you brought up Josh Norman and you brought up the Seahawks because I wanted to talk about both of those subjects in conjunction with this game. Give me your take on Josh Norman just overall as a DB.
His strength is he is truly, I love his competitive nature. He's not afraid. He's extremely aggressive, and he's always in attack mode. And those are the things you want to have, not just as a cornerback, but as a football player in general. He's super opportunistic, and he's the type where you want him either in man coverage, either bump and run or press bail. Like, those are the things he does well. That's what he did well in Carolina. He did well as I think they called a lot of trap over there and bail man. The things that I think he does struggle with is, once again, when there's a lot of information, like once we go in zone, you have to like communicate with him and just make sure you have to like double check, make sure you guys are on the same page, being that he is so aggressive. So it's almost like you got to put like a leash on him. Like, hey, you may see something, it may look enticing, but don't jump it because that is just an illusion.
If you can read him and work off of him, then can't the more cerebral quarterbacks do the same thing and take advantage of that?
No, I feel like, it does make them vulnerable, and quarterbacks will try to pick up on it, but that's when you keep going back to the drawing board and you self scout yourself. And like how I play too, I will go around the room and I would speak to, even during the games, I'm always talking to somebody. I would pull aside Breeland, like, hey, Breeland was really unpredictable, Rashad Breeland, and he will have a good game, and then he might get beat something, and then he may be thinking about that play a lot. So I always like go over and be like, hey man, you're playing great. Like, keep doing this. I'm gonna be over here. Don't worry about it. I might cheat my adjustment a little bit. I might sacrifice some of my coverage and try to get his mind right. Like, hey, jump this route or this is coming, So I try to, once again, coordinate the whole thing from my perspective, where sometimes it took me out of position. I may have been late on certain plays, but I just try to do extra work to help everybody else. So
the Eagles beat the Redskins using their third string quarterback, using an offensive line that was patchwork. 28-13, I don't know that it quite captures where this game was. I don't know that the Redskins ever had a chance to win, but it didn't strike me as a dominating performance. Adrian Peterson makes a 90-yard run where the first guy who touched him was maybe third level. I mean, he came through clean. And which is funny, though, is the guy chasing him was, I think, the corner LeBlanc, and he was watching the screen while he was chasing him. Yes. It's like, dude, look at Adrian Peterson. He was looking up. So I look at the Eagles, and this is what the Seahawks came to mind. Like, I have way more faith in who the Seahawks are right now than I do the Philadelphia Eagles. If you asked me who's the better team, I'd say the Seahawks, and it's not like I wouldn't hesitate. Well, because Seattle never lost their identity. That's why. Which is amazing because they recreated themselves on the fly. I mean, you know where they lost their identity? It was probably last year because they weren't good enough at what they did anymore to be that. And now they somehow found their way back to it.
Well, because it happened all of a sudden. Once again, they were still in the process of training their depth, and they got caught in a situation where it's like, hey, we got all these veterans that we kind of have to let go because we have cap issues too. So they made those moves, and the guys went through it, and it actually benefited them because the guys had to play last year. And so they still have their quarterback, which is everything. You have to have your quarterback. I don't care what team it is. You have to have your quarterback, number one. Number two, they have their middle linebacker and Bobby Wagner. They have their two leaders on both sides of the football who have been there, who know how to train everybody else in Pete Carroll's system and what he stands for, what it's all about. They know that. And so when guys come in there, anybody offense, everybody's going to respect Russell Wilson and I would say Doug Baldwin too. Everybody's going to respect them too and their opinions. You go on defense, you're going to respect Bobby Wagner, and Earl was there, and you're going to respect Earl too. And you're going to have to buy in. And if you don't buy in, it'll be just like when Pete and John took over. They had over 400 transactions to find guys who would buy in. And that's what it is. Truly, it is like that. And the environment there, the culture there, from top down, rest his soul, Paul Allen, from him all the way down, it's extremely player friendly over there. Top buildings, top facilities, top coaches, top all that stuff.
The flip side of that is Dan Snyder. And I don't know what your feeling is about him or what the feeling is among the players on the team. I know from the outside, he's not looked at as a very popular figure at all among, I dare say, Redskins fans, as well as just kind of the general NFL populace. Doesn't look at Dan Snyder, whether it's the name of the team. I've never talked about that. I suppose we will at some point. Or anything else. He's not a popular figure. Does any of that exist within the team? When the guys sign in your checks, do you look the other way? Are you conscious of that? Where are you?
What I did personally is I just, each person, I had my own relationship with them. And before I went there, you heard that, Dan's the villain, doesn't really care, will spend money on whoever player because of the image of the team. Not so much of I'm bringing in these players to make our team better. I care about the image, I want to make a big splash. So that's what I heard showing up over there. And I was like, well, you know what? I never really make my opinions or judgment if I don't know them, unless it's something like obviously outlandish. But he was cool to me. That's all I can say. He was cool to me. But the dynamic just in that front office, I was there too during the whole Scott McLuhan thing.
Oh, okay.
And I was there during that whole exactly. And that right there it was such like a dark place, man, because you just didn't know. It's the fact that they hired a new GM in Scott, and then however, Scott wasn't allowed to handpick his own staff.
He was not.
He was handed. He inherited Bruce's guys. That right there was already sketchy.
Yeah, for sure.
So not only is Scott trying to find players, but he's also training these guys to learn how to find players.
So was that just a financial thing? That they had guys under contract and so they made him keep them?
I have no idea. So that alone was interesting. And then just the dynamic in the front office in general just wasn't genuine. And I've seen it before. I've seen John Snyder and Pete Carroll's relationship. I've seen how Ted Thompson was with Coach McCarthy and everybody else. I've seen it, even in Jacksonville with Dave Caldwell and Gus Bradley. I know they weren't really successful, but I seen even with Shah Khan, I seen like him. I mean, Shah Khan's an unbelievable owner. I seen how just the dynamic of what it looks like because you can see everyone on the same page. And I felt like once we got into the building, everybody kind of went their separate ways. You never really seen anyone talking with each other. I'm talking about like the big guys.
Yeah.
You never seen them talk with each other. They all just went their separate ways.
So one of the stories that I've heard about Paul Allen, also owns the Portland Trail Blazers, is that Paul would constantly be texting ideas. And he wasn't overbearing. It wasn't like, you got to take my ideas, you got to implement my ideas. But he was like, whatever was coming his way, he was dropping on his GM. And I've known a variety of owners. Some are more intrusive than others. But in today's world, it seems to me, and I don't know if this applies to the NFL, I get the sense that it does, that across the board, that all the new owners coming in, they want to play with their toy. Like they want to be, right. They don't want to just own the team and show up for ribbon cutting and all that. They want to be involved in personnel decisions or actual decisions. And I assume that Dan was the exact same way from everything that I've heard.
Well, when he brought in Scott McCloughan, he basically gave him the keys. Like, hey, do whatever you want, get rid of whoever you want, make it yours. And
well, wait a minute, but you just told me he had to keep Bruce's staff.
No, but here's the thing. He was like, you know what? I think he said no. He said I think there's good people here. So I know the story is interesting because I heard a couple of things. I heard that he had to keep Bruce's staff, but then I also heard that he was like, there's good people here.
Right.
And then obviously all that went down with the whole lawsuit with him. Yeah. And everybody that he saved their job apparently testified against him too. Crazy world.
Wow. It can get really dirty. It can get really ugly.
It is crazy.
So with Pete Carroll, like I feel like he's got 9 lives. He reinvented that team. The feeling and the vibe. Everybody killing him for the decision not to run Marshawn Lynch in the Super Bowl and how that undercut everybody. And for me, if you look at and I'm not an analytics guy by and large, Marshawn Lynch, if you go back and you look, had not had success in those situations.
In the short line,
in the short goal line thing. In the short line.
That's who cares though. That's ridiculous to me.
Okay.
I don't. Makes no sense.
So you just, no matter what, you're gonna hand Marshawn the ball, win or lose. You're just gonna say this is what we're going with.
When it's second down, yes.
Okay, I get you. Down in distance, I'll give you that.
When he just got 6 yards, when it's second down, sure. When it's third down, definitely. Fourth down, make your call. Okay, that's what I'm saying. So he was killing the Patriots. He had over 100 yards rushing in that game. And like I said, he literally almost scored on that play before. He had the hot hand. He was ready to go. Just had it was a beautiful tackle. I think it was Hightower. But
so with all that said, so Pete made that call. He defended that call.
Of course, he defended the call.
And I thought that because of that, and I got the sense. I mean, Richard Sherman talks about it, but the general sense was he kind of lost the team as a result of that.
There's no kind of.
He lost the team because of that.
Well, the word in the street was he was like, we're going to ride Marshawn on the wheels till they fall off. So he's getting the ball. He's going to be the go-to. This is what's going to happen. And it's second down. You run that ball. And yeah, I'm sure he's going to defend. Of course he should defend it. I mean, he made the call.
Okay, so here's the thing. So he loses the team, but now, by all appearances, he has the team back. And I know you've made some personnel changes.
He made a lot of personnel
but
changes.
Not all. I mean, but there's
whole secondary's gone. Legion of Boom is gone.
Understood.
Everybody.
But
the whole D-line is gone. Everybody.
But there are guys left over.
Frank Clark is part of the new regime.
It's not like there's a new 52.
But think of all the big voices, though, that were there.
True.
Cliff Avrill's gone. Michael Bennett is gone. Meebane is gone. Bruce Irvin is gone.
Okay, fair. All of that fair. But here's the thing.
Sherman, Cam, Earl, Brandon Browner, Brian Maxwell, Walter Thurman. These are all starters, dude.
No. I get that. But
that's your team.
Once a coach loses a team, okay, so you can change a lot of it out.
The players he lost are gone.
Okay. All right.
That was the team.
Okay. So that's a little
He never lost Russell.
Okay. Which is what I was about to get to. Because there are a couple of guys that are still left over that were there that saw that firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
So how does he not lose Russell? How does he not lose the guys? Because the bottom line is they look at it and go, you cost us a Super Bowl.
Because Russell's mature enough to he's like, you know what? And that's anybody. Russell has probably one of the greatest minds because he's all about overcoming. He's all about being resilient. He's all about adversity. Like, okay, I don't care what happens. I'm going to figure it out.
He almost invites it. It's almost like he enjoys being at a disadvantage.
He does invite it and he wants it. And that's the cool thing that I like about him, especially every year he shows up. It doesn't matter who he has on offense. It doesn't matter what the running game is. But until this year, the last 2 years, he had 200-yard rushers and still made his team competitive.
Yeah. So where are you on the Eagles after tonight? As far as they're 6-6, Cowboys are 7-5, Seahawks are 7-5. I look at this, and I haven't even looked at their schedule, but I look at this Eagles team and the way they won tonight against a decimated Skins team, and I don't necessarily even see a team that's getting back to the playoffs.
No, you made a good point in the beginning, though. You said this was not a dominating effort. It was a lot of, the one glaring stat that no one noticed is that the Eagles they had 28 first downs, and that's because that's a lot of first downs.
That's a lot of first downs.
That's a lot. And that's because the Redskins kept getting out of their gaps. Adams was just getting through there every time.
Yeah.
Every time he just had a free run, free access, and they couldn't cover Ertz. And then they literally couldn't. Redskins could not throw the ball downfield at all. It was check down, screen, check down, screen, check down, screen.
Do you listen to the broadcast, or are you watching with the sound off?
I pay attention just because I like to hear what certain guys had to say. I always pay attention to the broadcast, but also too now that I'm on the media side, I kind of really take notes on, I would have said it like this. Oh, this is how he does it, So I do listen to both, but it's probably watching the game and listening is probably maybe 70-30, 70 watching.
Yeah, because I don't like to be colored by the broadcasters. Sometimes they take the game or they start harping on themes that I don't think are necessarily germane, or I'd rather kind of come up with my own conclusions in terms of what I'm watching,
I hear, right? But once again, I hear them saying like, I probably wouldn't say that. But I just, like I said, I do watch the game more because I am a football expert myself.
Yes, understood. So I have to ask you, they played the theme heavy for Jason Witten and his connection with Zach Ertz and the jersey exchange. And I will say this, it feels to me like ESPN is trying too hard when it comes to Jason Witten. They are trying too hard to make him a star. Like, they're not trying at all with Booger. And to me, McFarland has been great. And they haven't really kind of set him up for anything. There are no storylines where they're trying to, I'm going to use it correctly this time, to sort of floss Booger. And yet, every time he speaks, he gives me insight, and he does it in a way that's personable. And I don't have anything against, like, Jason, I think was a great football player. He seems like a great guy. So much of it just feels forced. And the whole Zach Ertz connection, jersey, the secrets in the dirt, which they never fully explained. It just, you know what? Let the guy stand or fall, but don't try so hard to convince us that he's ready for this, because that's my takeaway. He's not.
You know what? No, he definitely isn't. But they went on the limb, And yeah, McFarland should be better. He's been doing this longer,
true.
So
true.
Yeah. So he does sound like he's been doing this. So they threw somebody in the booth. They threw Jason, a cowboy, and that's that. And they are letting him learn on the fly.
Yeah. And
yeah, he's getting tons of criticism. And you want to find fillers, you want to find cool stories that goes along with it. And actually, the jersey exchange with Ertz, that was appropriate because it was a tight end connection. So I get that. Witten is one of the golden standards for tight ends.
It was a little weird for me, actually, was that there was this connection to Zach, because I think Zach's a great receiver as a tight end. Jason did it all, and Jason was a physically punishing tight end from what I saw.
Right.
Sometimes I get the feeling Zach doesn't want any of that. Like, he's more of a finesse tight end.
Now you're just nitpicking.
Am I?
You're just nitpicking right now. You are just nitpicking. Yes.
Am I?
Yes. There are a lot of guys who love Deion Sanders. They don't run 4-1s and 4-2s.
That's fair enough. All right. That does it for this episode of Bucher and Blackmon, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends. This is on the United WeCast network. You can check out some of the other podcasts that we have. Gary Owen, the comedian, Get Some. His podcast is on there. We also have a triathlete, the Age Groupie, that has just joined the network. Go check that out. And in this next podcast for Bucher and Friends, it is all going to be about Steph Curry. You may have heard the story about him responding to the 9-year-old girl who wanted to know where the Curry 5s were in girls' shoes. She wrote a handwritten letter to him, and he wrote a handwritten letter back. And everybody was blown away. To me, he's still selling shoes. But I'm going to give you a story about Steph and a certain girl that I know very well who he inspired to play basketball and to become one of the Splash Sisters. That's going to be part of the next podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please drop us a rating and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Screenshot your review and tweet it to us at Bucher Friends, and you'll be entered for a chance to win some swag from Ryan, Will, or me. In the meantime, thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.